I believe that hope releases us from the past and inspires in us a vision for the future. I'm going to say that again slightly differently. I believe that hope can release us from the past and inspire in us a vision for the future. Listen, if you are looking for words of hope, and so many are, from so many different places, there are lots of places you can look for those words of hope. The Bible is very definitely a good place to start, but if you're going to look for words of hope in the Bible, one of the best places to go is Isaiah. See, this thing that we call the book of the prophet Isaiah covers a big, long period of time in Hebrew history, including their conquest by the Assyrians, the period in which people from Jerusalem were sent in exile to Babylon, and their return. And so quite often we say the book of Isaiah is actually in 3 parts. Sometimes we say 2 because it seems like it might have had 2 different authors, even though 3 audiences. I don't think that matters to me. The words of Isaiah are inspiring, particularly that middle section that we heard from today, where he speaks to people. He speaks to people who have been taken from their home and are lost in exile in a place they don't want to be in, amongst people of a different culture, of different thinking, of different religion, just in the wilderness somewhere. And he offers them hope. And that hope is framed like this in this little piece that we heard today. It's framed like this. This is what God says. And by the way, before I tell you what it is that God said, let me just remind you that this is the God who led you out of Egypt, who led you out of slavery in Egypt. All that business about the soldiers being drowned and stuff, the chariots and things, that's a reference to crossing the sea. You remember the story, Exodus story? They come to the sea, the Egyptians are chasing them. God helps Moses part the sea so everyone can cross, and then as the Egyptians chase them, the sea comes in on them and drowns them. But the Hebrews are safely on the other side. Let me just remind you then, this is the same God who did that. Okay, and this is what he says. God says, let go of the past. I'm going to do a new thing. This is going to be a new thing. Can you see it? Hold on a second. You said forget the past. Don't remember the past. But you also said, remember that this is the God who did this in the past. So are you saying we should just selectively remember the good stuff from the past that's useful to us now and forget everything else because everything's new? So just forget that stuff. No, I don't think that's what it means at all. I think instead what it means is don't live in the past. Don't stay there, because you can't, because you grow. We are always moving. We want to say we are always moving forward, but in fact, we're not always moving forward. What we're doing is we're expanding. Our lives are just expanding in every direction, every moment, all around us. because that's how we are as human beings. We might like to think of ourselves as individual, and let's face it, these days, individuality is definitely an issue. But by the same token, we are individuals within the context of community. So we don't just go forward, we expand. We expand within our community, within our lives. That's why when you suddenly find yourself like 20 or 30 years later remembering something that happened, like it was yesterday, it's because it was. That's how you feel it. It's still there. It did not go away. You did not forget it. Your life simply expanded around it. And you remembered it. We're funny with words, aren't we? We use words like memories or history as if it's just like dates and events and things and stuff. But it's not. Because you can remember it. You can reconnect with it now. And here's the thing, though. You can't live there in the past because every moment is new. But what you can do is you can learn from it. You can take those experiences and you can make them part of who you are now and continue to grow. That's what they do, in fact. It's like you're building on a foundation. And you continue to build and build and build. Sometimes it feels like you get knocked down. But the next moment, you're up again. I feel like that's a Chumbawamba song. I get knocked down, but I get up again. It is actually a song by Chumba. Look it up. The thing is, that's how our lives are. Every moment is new. Every moment is fresh. But it can sure feel like things that happened in the past are right there. Because they are. We've connected to them. But you can't live there. That's literally, by the way, that's literally the definition, not politically, but literally the definition of conservatism. You're endeavoring to conserve, to not change, to keep things the same. And you can't. No matter how hard we want to, you can't. And more importantly, as God points out, you shouldn't. Because we are always growing. Always. Even to the point at which we might transition from this life to another life. We are always growing. And so God offers this. Don't live in the past. Let go of it. But build on it. Remember the things that propel you forward, that expand you. Remember those things. The point of remembering the first Exodus in this context, is to remind the Hebrew people that they're about to have another one for the first time as they return to Jerusalem. Oh, return. There's another word. We have so many words that begin with R-E, as if there's something that happens again. And in fact, what's happening is they are turning to Jerusalem. What Isaiah is talking about is that Cyrus, the king of the Persians, and the Persians are about to conquer the Assyrians, and Cyrus is going to send the Hebrew people back to Jerusalem. This new Exodus isn't the same as the first one. It's going to be different. And yet, the point of that first Exodus was it propelled the Hebrew people forward into being who they are. It sent them into the wilderness where they learned how to be a people together and move them forward. And here's Isaiah saying, God's going to do that again for the first time. It's not going to be the same. But just hang on to what happened that last time, how it helped create the people, how it helped build people, how it helped move the people forward, because that's what's going to happen again, because that's what happens. It's a new thing. Here's the tricky part. Do you see it? Can you perceive it? That's why I believe it hope releases us from the past and inspires a vision of the future. Hope inspires us to think past this moment to what may be. And we can envision that, and then we can move towards it. And we can use all of that stuff that's happened to us, good and bad, to move us in that direction. To not just aspire to that vision, but to create it. That's what we do. That's what we do as congregations, as churches, as faith communities, as communities. We aspire to a vision of a better community, and we move there. The question is, can you see the new thing happening? Can you see how we might go there? We have mission statements, we have goals, we have all sorts of tools. But it's the hope that gives us a vision. Do you see it? I have no doubt at all that when Isaiah offers these words from God and includes a question, that question is meant to be asked on two levels. Do you perceive it as an individual in your life? Do you see that? Do you see the newness happening? And as a community, do you see it? Do you perceive not only how that newness is happening, but how we might envision where it's going? I want to say that's particularly where we are right now. Many churches, community organizations, people are at that right now, right? We've had this 2-year, whatever that was, and now we want to move forward. We want to envision a future and go there. But it's not just because of that. It's not just because of a thing. An experience isn't the only thing. Every moment is new. Every day is new. I know that, I know this particular thing because I actually did this. I realized I did this last week in the PowerPoint. And I did it if you've been following our Picture a Day on Facebook, representation of things like new is almost always what? Dawn, a new day. But that's not where the newness stops. It keeps going forward. Through the day, through the evening, through the night, into the morning, into the next day, and the next day, and the next day. We are continually living into new. Things are always turning. So even for the people who were living in exile in Babylon, It's not just a question of we're going to return home and everything's going to be fine and it's going to be exactly the way we left it and we're going to do things exactly the way we did before. If you want to read ahead, by the way, that isn't what happens. Because when the people who were in exile returned to Jerusalem, there were people who didn't leave and who did keep things exactly the same. And the people who came back wanted to do new. And there was some conflict because the people who were there didn't want to change anything. They'd become comfortable with the way things were. And the people who returned wanted to do something new because they were inspired. They were inspired to do new. Things are about to turn. You can say return if you want, but the fact is we can't return to the same thing. We need to turn to something new. Do you see it?